question. I think there's been a lot of men asking questions. I'd like to ask a question now, please. I'd just like to know what's the view of participatory economics on the whole issue of using money as a means of exchange, and having a banking system and accumulating money separately from actually sort of producing and distributing wealth and making sure everybody gets what they need to survive.
Okay, so the way I understand it, in capitalism, money is a kind of a commodity that you use to exchange for everything else. So in capitalism, if we use money, it would be, if we use something similar to money, it would be wouldn't be a commodity in itself. So what you're getting, so say you get some sort of value, like credits or something. So you're allotted a certain amount of credits and you get them monthly or something. And you have, according to your plan set out of what you plan to consume and whatnot. And you're allowed to modify that to a certain extent, and you use up credits as you take the individual things you plan to consume from the individual outlets.
You couldn't be given credits and then trade them with other people.
No, that's right. They're not transferable. You can't put them in the bank and get like loads of returns and stuff. Potentially, but I don't see that really happening. So if there's money, it will be basically just as a shorthand means to exchange for like real commodities. You won't be able to transfer them to other people. You won't be able to use them to like invest in things and stuff.
So
that's the idea.
You wouldn't want to see anything like loans and interest and shareholdings and so on. You'd want to completely bypass that entire aspect of the financial system.
Largely speaking, yeah. Well, things like, say you're getting a house or something, like then you might need the equivalent of a house loan, which would be you commit a certain amount of your future consumption bundle to paying for a sale of house. So it's sort of like a loan, but yeah.
Of course, you don't have
not
shares
a full bank thing,
because there's no private ownership of the means of production. So
yeah. So
shares
geographical areas are run by the consumers' councils and workplaces are run by the workers' councils.
Can I just mention, because the guy had a good point about some discussion, I think it's so if anyone else wants to answer, comment, then just
there's a confusion between the idea of price and the amount of value we ascribe to something. So I think things do need to have some sense of value ascribed to them because they take time to produce and they might have a negative effect on other people and trials in the air, but the buyer doesn't have to pay for that at the moment. So yeah, we do need some system of putting some kind of point score on the things and saying, yeah, not everyone can have a palace this week. It's not like saying everyone can just have whatever they want. So we do need a way of talking about that, and I think it's really difficult to explain how people do their shopping in 20 minutes in ParEcon when you're talking about councils. But I mean, this is basically, we're talking about a system where the whole community as it's affected gets a chance to chip in on what that value is, like how much am I affected by this work going on, by this industry, how much am I affected by working in this industry, what does it mean to me, how much do I want this thing, and so it's a way of not having a price that's set by people because they control that resource, but by just opening up that to the community as a whole. And I think that's a really important point that's quite difficult to get into in a few minutes. I'm not sure that Phil necessarily understands that this whole idea of, well, we all get together and we have a decision, and then the Workers' Council has a decision, and then some federated level with some people who facilitate that. It's like some big eBay or something. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, this is something easy to explain even if you explain, like in a market economy.
Sure. I'm not saying he's trying to explain what happens now,
yeah.
but we can understand what happens now because we can go out in the shops and experience it, even if we don't understand the thing behind it. So I mean, it's but I think it's just this idea of having that discussion, facilitating that discussion about what the cost and value of things really are to society as a whole, and not just to individuals who can make some fast cash off it.
Yeah.
And I think also on ParEcon, it's good to, it's a wiki book and I read it and it's dense as hell, and there's also a lot of really good information contained in like the articles on ZNet I found that are much shorter and I found quite accessible and summarise a lot of the points very well.
There's short pieces in Realising Hope as well, which is, it kind of covers a hell of a lot actually in a very small book. So summary of ParEcon, but also he talks about Marxism, so people that are interested in that. He has a longer book, Hannah and Albert, on unorthodox Marxism, which is again a good one to read. But yeah, and on Z, so there are shorter accounts than the book, for sure.
I know there's not much time, but could you talk a bit about the strategy like they're getting from A to B? Like how do we, because right now we're in capitalism, what are some steps we can take to get towards ParEcon?
I'll join PPSUK. Well, those sorts of things you can do. Like you can join a labor union, for example. You can form your own. Join if they're good ones at this. Ensure that they embody the kinds of values and institutions that we want. So, if you're doing a labor union, for example, you want it to be participatory, democratic, right down to the the basic levels. You want to share tasks according to balanced role conflicts. So you're sort of putting in place institutions similar to the ones you're trying to realize outside, and then advocating for all sorts of reforms, especially structural reforms that help say workers get better control over their workplace. So things like like in a car factory or something. Say you can you can have a rule whereby the workers in the factory could veto management decisions, for example, if they didn't like it, so on and so forth. And I mean the basic bread and butter struggles, like more wages, better rights, and so on and so forth. There's other ways too. You write books, you talk to people.
Yeah, I think Mike Lauber makes a really nice distinction. I don't know if you guys read it, but about non-reformist reforms. I think that's a really, really good distinction. So sometimes people think, well, I want a revolution. I want a totally different system. So I don't want to be like palmed off with reformism. But it's about, well, first of all, having the vision so you know actually where you want to go. But certain short-term gains. So it could be working on increasing minimum wage, or it could be trying to bring local kind of participatory budgeting like Port Alegre or something like that. Any of those short-term gains, they're on the way towards something like a ParEcon. They will be necessary. So really, this is the whole point about vision, is that it really helps you with strategy and tactics. So a non-reformist reform is a small concession, but it's one that's towards where you want to go. Really important, I think. Great distinction.
I also think it's like supporting ParEcon-ish or ParEcon-like alternatives of business or something that already exists. So like supporting the factories in Argentina, for example, supporting Zapatista, stuff like that. It's
and also cooperatives. We have quite a large, number of cooperatives, and there's certain institutions that you could, you could go to cooperatives and talk about ParEcon and talk about things like balanced job complexes, because I'm sure they have a lot of the cooperatives share the values of ParEcon. I'm sure. But then they may not have every one of those institutions, and you can see, do you have a problem with this? Do some people tend to dominate this? And it's like, yeah, okay, try balanced job complexes. So I think, prefigurative institutions and non-reformist reforms.
This is going to be a bit of my own question, which is, I think as anti-capitalists we tend to be against the markets. But I think you can be anti-capitalist and not be against markets, because you could be against property, or you could, I don't think markets are an essential part of capitalism in the sense that you can still be anti-capitalist and use markets as a way of figuring out what products need to be produced.
Yeah, for example, like market socialism.
So it's a question basically where if you're just giving credits to different factories to determine so that they can use those to run their factory, how do you determine, what's the mechanism by which you determine which factories get credits, or how many credits each factory gets to use to produce whatever they're going to produce, and how do you decide what's more valuable?